Hi guys, welcome to our daily encounter. In Psalm 118, it says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his loving kindness is everlasting. Let Israel say, his loving kindness is everlasting. Oh, let the house of Aaron say, his loving kindness is everlasting. Oh, let those who fear the Lord say, his loving kindness is everlasting." Clearly, the psalmist wants the congregation, the people that he is speaking to remember and to recall the loving kindness of the Lord. And there's a lot of reasons why one might want to remember and recall the loving kindness of God. And a lot of those things are found in this very psalm. And these are things that we should, or reasons why we should recall also the loving kindness of God as well. For one, it shows that the loving kindness of God means that the Lord is for me. In verse 6, the Lord is for me. I will not fear. What can man do to me? And here in the context, the psalmist is recalling a time in which the Lord had shown his loving kindness to him and had helped him in relation to his enemies. And he says, from my distress, I called upon the Lord. The Lord answered me and set me in a large place. The Lord is for me. I will not fear. He'd come to the realization that God was for him. And when we remember the loving kindness of God, when we remember his loving devotion, his mercy, his gracious love, his faithful love, his steadfast love, his loyal love, all encapsulated in that one word in the original, we can remember and be reminded of the fact that God is for us. Maybe sometimes we forget that. Maybe we forget a lot of times that God is in our corner, that God is actually, in a sense, cheering us on. He is for us. He is not against us, and he doesn't just tolerate us. I think sometimes as believers we might think, especially as we consider the condition of the human heart and we consider our own condition, we might think, well, God just kind of puts up with me. His love is demonstrated in just putting up with me. But here, this verse teaches us that God is actually for us. Like he's on our side and he's there to be there for us and to help us in life. And so we should remember the loving kindness of God because it means that he is for us. He's on our side. So when we come to God in prayer, it's not that we're going to someone who is against us and then somehow we have to convince him to come over to our side or something like that. He is for us. And we're talking to someone who is for us, who's on our side. Also, the loving kindness of God means it's better to take refuge in him than in man. And in verse 8 and 9, it says, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in man. It is better to take refuge in the Lord than to trust in princes." The loving kindness of the Lord is something that you can bank on. It's something that is sure. It's something that you can fall on in hard times. Not so much with other people. Whoever they might be, whether they are just other people or even if they're princes, people in high power, maybe politicians that we might trust in, they're not reliable, at least not as reliable as the Lord. Mankind is not trustworthy, whether it's because they're malicious or because of just the fact that we make mistakes. And even though we're well intended to help someone, we might fall short, and that's true of other people as well. But with God, his loving kindness is sure, and his love is dependable. His loving kindness means that he helps us in verses 13 and 14. "You pushed me violently so that I was falling, but the Lord helped me. The Lord is my strength and my song. He has become my salvation." He says there that the Lord helped me. And because of the loving kindness of God, we can be assured that he's there to help us in whatever way that we need it, in whatever way will work out the most good in a particular situation. Sometimes he helps us by fixing the situation and resolving the issue. Other times he just helps us by strengthening us from within to endure the hardship, the difficulty, the trial, or whatever we're facing. But either way, he's going to help us. Then his loving kindness means that those who trust in him have joy. In verse 15, it says, "The sound of joyful shouting and salvation is in the tents of the righteous." Because we have such a trustworthy God, because we have a God who does love us with this loyal love, this wonderful, faithful love, it causes us to rejoice because we always have him to lean on, to turn to in difficult times. And we see his action, his work in our lives, and it just causes immense joy. His love, or his loving kindness, means also that he disciplines us. In verse 18, he says, "The Lord has disciplined me severely, but he has not given me over to death." A Hebrew writer says that the Lord disciplines those who he loves. Discipline is actually an action of love by the Lord to keep us on the straight path. And so the loving kindness of God means that he will discipline us. Sometimes we might not attribute that to the love of God, but it actually is an aspect of his love as he corrects us. The loving kindness of God means that he's our salvation. In verse 14, "The Lord is my strength and my song, and he has become my salvation," as we read earlier. But also in verse 21, "I shall give thanks to you, for you have answered me, and you have become my salvation." And we definitely have seen that ultimately in Jesus Christ. But here, perhaps the salvation being referred to is that of deliverance from the situation that he was in. The Lord will save us. He is our salvation in particular situations. He'll bring us through those hard times. He will give us that light at the end of the tunnel. He is a God who is trustworthy with this loyal love that he has. And then lastly, his loving kindness means that we should give him thanks. This is kind of the bookends of the psalm. It both opens with a call for thanksgiving, and it also ends with a call for thanksgiving. In verse 1, it says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good." And then in verse 29, it says, "Give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his loving kindness is everlasting." Repeats basically what was said in verse 1. And so his love, his loyal love, his faithful love, his mercy, his gracious love, all of that ought to propel us into thanksgiving for God and his love that he has for us. So these are some things that the loving kindness of God means for us. It means that he is for us. It means that it's better to take refuge in him than man. He helps us. Those who trust in him have joy. He disciplines us. He is our salvation, and he causes us joy. His loving kindness causes us joy. And so we should recall the loving kindness of God, as the psalmist here is encouraging us to do. "Oh, let Israel say his loving kindness is everlasting. Oh, let the house of Aaron say his loving kindness is everlasting. Oh, let those who fear the Lord say his loving kindness is everlasting." It endures even unto the end and beyond, and we can bank on it and we can trust in it, and that produces joy in our hearts. So these are some things we can reflect on as we read Psalm 118. And with that, guys, I do thank you for watching the video today. Hope you guys have a great day. Love you guys. God bless.